Hey everyone, I'm just sitting down and I'm reading your work for this week and it's great. So good job. Good on you. I'm just reading the part of In Groups We Shrink and the perks of being a weirdo. And I want to point out that what you all are doing is applying your own insight, original insight, by using examples from your life that you have observed or participated in that illustrate the concepts that the writers are writing about. So I just think that was just, great. And what I want to make the point of is that that's exactly what you need to do in your essays is once you've made a point that one of these articles or talks is making, then when you're doing the analysis paragraphs, then you bring your own experience or insight to it. Even if it's, to say something more like adding on to it, or if it's to agree and say, yes, I've seen this in real life. This rings true. And, anyway, so I was just very impressed by the application and the thought. Also with Carol Dweck, the brainology. I think a lot of you are writing about your own experience. And I think we all kind of feel like, oh man, failure is no fun, right? But it was more of a blockade to some people than others, and it represented something different depending on what your experience of learning or growing up or school was. So anyway, good job. I hope Eric doesn't get mad at me. Eric Lee, I'm just going to show you someone who did some very good application. There were so many, I stopped when I got to this one. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to send these creatures of video. Okay. So I'm going to look at you. This is Eric's the perks of being a weirdo. He's right about yourself. He's doing that in terms that he was an international student, and he writes about how he played lacrosse and football or and hockey in order to fit in. So here I would say if he was writing an essay, he could say, well, it's not always the worst thing to want to fit in, make no mistake. So he'd be adding an original insight there or response to this idea that sometimes we do the wrong thing because we fit in. He could begin that way and then say, however, it's important to remember that fitting in is part of how we succeed in life, so there's kind of a two-sided equation there. So, and then he's answering all the questions. And here I just wrote, he really had a great turn of phrase here about how people in the minority think. And then once they become in the majority, suddenly the thinking becomes more conformist and it all becomes more unified. So in a way, I think the author is saying, it's human nature kind of playing itself out over and over again, as the group, how does he put it? Humans, when in a more comfortable environment with people of the same kind, are less likely to strive to make a difference. They settle down with the original ideas since they are afraid to propose a different point of view. So he kind of recast that a little bit and in an interesting way. And then he gives an example of shrinking in groups. And it happened recently. It was the summer of 2021. The friends are out drinking. They see a guy making trouble in the bar. Nobody does anything. And instead, what do you think people are doing? They are videoing on their phones, the incident. And I think we've all kind of seen that seems to be happening all over the world. People would rather film it than do something about it. So that's kind of interesting. So anyway, I just picked a random student because so many people really kind of put their back into these readings. And I just wanted to point out that that's great stuff to remember, that these assignments are not disconnected from the essays. And now we have Holly. And I want to just tell you that if you use and avail yourself of help from the tutor, it doesn't mean that you're a bad student or anything. It means you're a great student. Even if you got a 6 or a 5 on your other essay, please reach out and have a back and forth with her a little bit. And she's in contact with me. And then, just to kind of iron out your ideas. Last point I was going to make that I don't think I've made quite emphatically enough so far is that the key to really writing well is revision. I write all the time. I do a lot of different things, and I sometimes I'll write a whole thing and I'll be so up in my head. I think it's so great, and then I look it back and I'm like, oh, wait a second. there's a gap here, or this doesn't quite make sense, or I've got to rethink a whole thing that I put in there. So remember to reread what you've done and try it over and over again. Just think it through from the bottom to the top as it lays on the page in the sequence that you have it, because very much attention must be paid to the transitions from one idea or one sentence to the next and how they tie back to the idea that you're discussing. All right, so that's all I have to say. Good work on the homework. Very impressive. Keep it up.